Justice Thomas, thank you for being with us on Explorations in Black Leadership.
Well, thank you.
I want to begin with a question about Brown v. Board. I know it was decided the year before you entered elementary school, but did you have some sense that this was a big deal?
Well, not at the time. The big deal was learning the multiplication table and how to add, those sorts of things. But as the years went on, particularly 56, 57, you got a sense of it because there was quite a bit of talk about it. My grandfather was very involved with the NAACP, for example, so you heard that. You also heard, or as I mentioned when I wrote my memoirs, that we saw the impeach Earl Warren signs along Highway 17 going to Liberty County. And I always wondered who this Earl Warren was. And later on, of course, I would figure it out that it was the Chief Justice of the United States, and he was in trouble in part because of Brown.
I guess there's no way I could say, did you ever think that you'd be sitting in the building where Earl Warren worked?
Well, not only didn't I think of that, I didn't think that I would ever see the building where he worked.
Now, as you found out what it meant as you grew older, did you have some idea of what it might mean, what it could mean, as opposed to what it may have turned out to mean?
You know, my grandfather was an interesting man. He, of course, dominated our lives. And he felt that as these rights were vindicated, that we had an obligation to measure up, to use them. I'll give you a separate example. When the Savannah Public Library finally desegregated and we were allowed to go to the main library, his point was that we were obligated to use it. That is, we had to show up no matter what, and we had to read books because we finally had a right to do so. So when it came to education, as the rights became available, we had an obligation to use them properly. So he would say to me in 1964, when I went to a seminary which was previously all white, he said, "Don't shame me and don't shame the race." In other words, you have to perform.
Do you think that the Brown decision had something to do with opening the doors in the seminary that you attended?
Oh, I think the seminary, I think it had an impact in lots of ways, absolutely. And that was 1964, that was 10 years later, and things were changing slowly. But absolutely, I think it got the ball rolling. I think it changed attitudes. It changed the legal arrangements. People like Phyllis Kravitz, who's on the 11th Circuit now, she was on the board of education in Savannah, and started moving things in that direction back then. And so in talking with her and people like W.W. Law in Savannah, and previously, before that, Saul C. Johnson, who ran the Informer in Savannah, absolutely. So it was a combination of things that moved us in that direction. So yes, it did have an impact.
But yet, at the same time, you've been critical of the jurisprudence that created Brown.
Oh, I think not critical in that sense. It could have been stronger in the sense that, I mean, when we do opinions, you look at another opinion and you say, well, I don't agree with this approach or that. But no, not with the bottom line, obviously.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think it has turned out to mean, the Brown decision, all these years later?
Oh, I think it really did something that could have been done back when Plessy was decided in the 1890s, and that is to affirm something that's clear in the 14th Amendment, and that is that all citizens had the same rights, all citizens of the United States, and made it possible, and yes, just in a practical way, for us all to have, or at least have a possibility to have the same education. I mean, if you look, for example, I happen to be a big sports fan, and when I grew up, games like Georgia-Florida meant nothing. It meant nothing because those schools were segregated. Now, if you had Savannah State playing South Carolina State, that meant something. Or Florida A&M came into town, that meant something because we had some connection with them. But now when you watch the Georgia-Florida game or you watch the Alabama game, you have such a large number of black athletes involved, so you can see that even there, just from a perception or just a sports or entertainment standpoint, it's just quite different. And similarly now when you visit the campuses, I go to University of Georgia, that's a campus that was not open to me. And so I think it's changed quite a bit.
So, and you can trace all these to Brown? You think?
Oh, obviously.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that that's the beginning. And that's something that could have been done years before.
I've read, I think, that you think that Brown is sort of a precursor of affirmative action, that it opened the door.
No, not really.
No.
No, I don't think so. I don't think I've ever said that.
No, I'm not quoting you as having said
Yeah.
that, but just that Brown happened, and then the enforcement of Brown, or the carrying out of Brown, opened the door for a kind of racial spoil system.
No, not really. I think that, that's, you can debate that, but that's sort of the structural injunction, sort of that where the remedy is something where you set up a broad system rather than deal with the case before you. But I don't think that's accurate.
Okay, I stand corrected. Now, how do you think Brown impacted your life? You talked about these private schools, which are not touched by Brown, that were open to you because of Brown. What other ways do you think Brown affected your life?
Oh, I think just sitting here, just the fact that we're here. I mean, just think about it. To the extent that people had sentiments that were inconsistent with the Constitution, that were somehow enforceable either by custom or by law, Brown was one of the major pieces that began the erosion of those customs and those attitudes. And whether it's in parks, the public facilities, whether it's in public accommodations later on. But it changed. I mean, and I was right there at in the late 60s as it was just beginning to change. It wasn't changed yet. But just think of something as simple as being able to go have a burger at one of the big boys in Savannah. You couldn't do it. So yes, I mean, it's changed tremendously. I think you can't overestimate the significance of it.